Welcome to F1 Blogs. We're diving straight into the thrilling details of the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
That's right. We're bringing you the crucial stories and insights we've gleaned.
Forget endless scrolling. We've distilled everything you need to know about the Jeddah race right here for you. Okay, let's unpack what really went down.
It was certainly a weekend that, well, delivered on multiple fronts. Lots to analyze.
Absolutely. Shifts in the competitive landscape, for sure. And for the first time this season, the driver who started on pole didn't take the checkered flag.
Oscar Piastri, starting alongside on the front row, managed a fantastic launch.
And then you had Max Verstappen getting that penalty.
Which ultimately meant Piastri broke that pole-to-victory trend we'd been seeing.
Yeah, and this has, naturally reignited the discussion around whether the 2025 season is shaping up to be a dirty air championship.
That's a very pertinent question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Piastri's win, it wasn't exactly straightforward.
No, not a case of him being outright fastest in clean air or pulling off some audacious overtake.
Exactly. Verstappen's penalty was, in the end, the determining factor for the win. But what's particularly interesting is what we saw in those initial laps.
Right. Piastri seemed to struggle, didn't he? To maintain close proximity to Verstappen.
He did. It really looked like the turbulent air coming off Verstappen's Red Bull was accelerating the degradation of Piastri's tires.
As he tried to keep pace, yeah.
And this just underscores that persistent challenge of close racing in F1, doesn't it?
It really does. The aerodynamic wake, it just has such a significant impact on the car behind.
Leads to increased sliding, overheating tires. You know the drill.
And with the current regulations staying pretty much stable.
Well, it does suggest that the importance of a strong qualifying performance and maybe that crucial charge through the first few corners
might be amplified for the rest of the season. Really decisive moments.
Could well be. And while Verstappen's penalty grabbed many of the headlines, we shouldn't lose sight of Piastri.
Definitely not. Securing this victory, taking the championship lead, that's a massive personal achievement for him.
Precisely. Amidst all the focus on Verstappen's misfortune, Piastri showed remarkable composure.
And a degree of, let's call it ruthlessness at the start, holding his position against Verstappen into turn one.
He really did. And considering that in terms of pure pace, he was probably third quickest behind Norris and Verstappen.
Yeah, that win speaks volumes about his mental strength and his racecraft.
Definitely. It also marks McLaren's fourth win in the first 5 races, which is incredible.
It's an amazing run. But this one felt different, didn't it?
It did. It didn't seem like they possessed the absolute fastest car in Jeddah.
Not like we saw in Australia, China, or Bahrain.
No. And on a circuit where managing tire temperatures was expected to be a big factor, maybe even play into McLaren's strengths.
Red Bull seemed right there.
Right on their heels, yeah. And arguably maybe even manage their tire temps a touch better.
We saw Piastri's medium tires start to lose performance first in that initial stint.
We did. And then Verstappen was able to close that gap considerably towards the end of the race.
So what does this all point to?
Well, it suggests that perhaps Red Bull has now closed the gap to McLaren.
At least on certain types of circuits, after McLaren seemed to have that distinct advantage earlier on.
I think so. It strongly indicates that the competitive intensity at the front is likely increasing.
Which promises a more thrilling season ahead for all of us, hopefully.
Let's hope so.
Speaking of McLaren, though, Lando Norris. After his impressive podium recovery in Bahrain, he couldn't quite replicate that this time, finishing behind Piastri.
No, he couldn't. And he essentially made his own weekend more challenging, didn't he?
Because of that error in Q3.
Yeah, exactly. He admitted carrying too much speed into turn 4, which led to understeer.
The car not turning in as much as he wanted.
Right. And ultimately hitting the wall. McLaren themselves have noted that Norris is still having these moments where he's, quote, surprised by the car's handling right at the limit in qualifying.
It sounds like he's maybe pushing just a fraction too hard sometimes in qualifying.
Possibly. Leading to more errors compared to Piastri, maybe.
There were even mentions that he might need to tone down his driving slightly during those critical quali sessions.
That seems to be the assessment right now. His raw speed is undeniable, of course.
But he's showing a greater tendency towards these crucial errors when he's trying to squeeze out every last hundredth.
He needs to find that sweet spot, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Maximize the potential without exceeding the limits.
Okay, now let's shift focus to Mercedes. Wow. They seem to have their most difficult weekend of the season in Saudi.
Yeah, 5th and 6th. Russell nearly half a minute behind Piastri. That's a significant margin.
It really is, and it was an unexpected setback for them.
Definitely. There weren't immediately obvious explanations for the tire blistering Russell experienced.
And the amount of tire management both he and Antonelli had to do.
They reported struggling with overheating, front and rear, whenever they tried to push harder.
Russell even described a massive drop-off, like his tires just suddenly gave up.
And Mercedes openly admitted they expected a gap to McLaren, but they were genuinely surprised by the gap to Red Bull and even Ferrari.
Toto Wolff himself called that extra deficit a real negative.
Understandably. And the optimism Lewis Hamilton showed after Bahrain seemed to completely evaporate.
Yeah, he called it a weekend with 0 positives for him, personally. Ouch.
Aside from Leclerc's third place, he added. But yeah, quite a statement.
Hamilton really seemed to struggle for pace all weekend, qualified over half a second slower than Leclerc.
And just didn't seem to have the speed in the race, finishing 7th.
He mentioned lacking confidence in the rear end, especially in high-speed corners.
He did. He's finding it challenging to cope with the car's tendency to understeer towards the corner exit.
And that's hitting his ability to find those final fractions in Q3.
He even voiced uncertainty about whether he adapt his driving style to the car's current characteristics.
That's a big question, isn't it? How he approaches the next races, and if Mercedes can fix these underlying issues.
It really is. It'll be fascinating to watch.
Okay, let's move on to Yuki Tsunoda's debut with the Red Bull team. Sounds like it was a bit of a trial by fire.
You could say that. Culminating in that first lap collision in Jeddah.
A disappointing end to the weekend for him, for sure.
It was. Though he did show glimpses of potential. He acknowledged being off for Verstappen's quali pace, but felt the gap maybe exaggerated the true deficit.
And he admitted he doesn't fully understand the car yet. Called it tricky.
He did. But interestingly, Red Bull seems to have confidence in him.
They think he can crack it and see him as an upgrade over Lawson.
That's the team's line, yes. And they're giving him a significant chance to integrate now.
Like proper support.
Extensive simulator work, a full day testing the 2023 car at Silverstone.
Okay, so focused preparation to help him get up to speed and understand the car better.
Exactly. Should help him experiment with setups, driving techniques.
It's good to hear he's getting that support. Now, Carlos Sainz Jr., he had a fantastic weekend with Williams.
He really did. His best qualifying in Saudi, and a very solid drive to finish 8th.
A thoroughly impressive and, well, complete weekend for him, wasn't it?
Absolutely. After maybe a slightly challenging start with Williams, he seemed to find a good rhythm in Jeddah.
Qualified strongly, managed the race well, valuable points.
And it was double points for Williams. Albon crossed the line in 9th.
Right, and Sainz even strategically helped Albon defend using DRS against Hadjar.
That collaborative effort really speaks volumes about the positive atmosphere there.
And it moves Williams up to 5th in the Constructors' Championship. Big result for them.
Huge. Sainz himself said he was very, very solid, very happy. And Albon was pleased too, despite dealing with Sainz's dirty air.
On the other end of the spectrum, Lance Stroll, unfortunately, set a new record for Q1 exits, his 75th time.
Oof. Yeah, not a statistic you want. Though, to be fair, the performance of the Aston Martin seems a big factor.
He tried to downplay it, highlighting the car dependency, but still.
The numbers tell a story, yes. However, it is worth noting his qualifying pace in Jeddah was actually closer to Alonso's compared to recent races.
Suggesting the current Aston package is indeed presenting considerable limitations.
It seems that way, yes.
And what about the rookies? Isaac Hadjar sounds particularly impressive.
Hadjar has definitely been a standout among the newer drivers, consistently scoring points despite limited F1 experience.
His race pace has been noteworthy since the start of the season, hasn't it?
It really has. Recovering after that formation lap incident in Australia was impressive. Points in Japan.
And he felt his 10th place in Saudi was a perfect race.
He did. Only missed out on potentially more because of Williams' smart DRS use.
Okay, let's delve into strategy for a moment. Another race, another predominantly one-stop strategy fest.
Yep, even though Pirelli brought softer tire compounds trying to encourage variation.
It just didn't happen, did it?
No, it was another clear demonstration of the durability of these 2025 tires. Degradation remained low enough that the one-stop was just the fastest way.
The optimal approach for nearly everyone.
Pretty much. So this ongoing trend of limited strategic diversity might continue unless something changes.
Either with the tires themselves or the rules around using them.
That's a significant concern for the spectacle, isn't it? Pirelli's new softest compound, the C6.
Debuting at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in May.
That'll be a crucial litmus test, as you say. Will it genuinely introduce more strategic variability?
If not, F1 and Pirelli might need to reevaluate their approach.
They might have to.
Right, shifting focus again. Behind the scenes in Saudi, sounds like the heat was a really big factor.
Oh, definitely. Even if it wasn't always obvious on TV, AstonMartin even had issues with their tire temp display not working.
And the physical toll on the drivers. Fernando Alonso looked completely exhausted, apparently.
Yeah, the combination of extreme heat and the physical demands of that track.
Yeah.
Even without unusually high tire degree.
And it wasn't just Alonso. Kimi Antonelli felt very dizzy, needed help from his dad.
Yes. Even had to miss his post-race media interviews because of it.
Norris and Leclerc were visibly affected too right after the race.
They were. It really underscores the incredibly tough conditions. There was even that funny moment with the F1 cameraman getting a bit too close to Leclerc drinking.
Those moments. And the post-race scrutineering by the FIA.
Always fascinating. Weighing the cars, floor wear checks, fuel sampling, aero flexibility tests. Meticulous stuff.
And then there were the fireworks. Unexpectedly loud and long.
50 seconds. Disrupted press conferences, amused Albon, bothered Ocon's ears.
And apparently Lando Norris is not a fan of fireworks at all.
Seems not. It's those little unscripted moments that add character to the weekend.
Definitely. Carlos Sainz Jr.'s weekend also had its share of quirky moments.
It did. The team celebrating with hair extensions.
The running joke about his manager, cousin Kako, not being there being the reason for his good luck.
And that issue with his cooling vest on the grid. Mechanics using phone lights to check for leaks.
Right before the start, and then he struggled to get out of the car afterward.
Possibly a tube got stuck, yeah. Needed help from the Sauber mechanic. Quite the saga.
And speaking of sagas, the ongoing mystery of Mercedes' single refrigerated jacket.
Shared between Antonelli and Russell. The logistics must be interesting.
Especially given potential size differences.
It certainly presents an intriguing logistical challenge.
On to some more random observations. Peter Baer, the Racing Bulls CEO.
Apparently bears a striking resemblance to a TV character.
So the reports say. And that comical incident recovering Yuki Tsunoda's crashed car?
Oh yes, involving various marshals and a firefighter, ending with the car getting bumped against the barrier. Oops.
Those little moments of human error adds a touch of levity, I suppose.
In a high-stakes environment, yes.
It also sounds like Lando Norris was visibly dejected after qualifying.
He really did look down. Verstappen even went over to ask if he was okay.
Highlights how much that mistake affected him, especially thinking he could have challenged for pole.
Yeah, definitely disappointing for him.
And there was that playful moment in Parc Fermé between Norris and Piastri.
Norris jokingly touching Piastri's diffuser, yeah. Elicited a reaction.
Plus, the running gag of Zach Brown playfully hitting Piastri.
It's good to see that camaraderie exists despite the intense rivalry.
Now, let's get back to that first corner incident. Piastri and Verstappen, the penalties. Still a lot of debate, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Was Verstappen's penalty for not immediately giving the place back justified?
And should Piastri have faced consequences for, well, pushing Verstappen wide in the first place?
That move was certainly aggressive. It did force Verstappen off track.
But Verstappen got the penalty for not giving the spot back immediately.
He did? But there's definitely a valid argument about Piastri's role in initiating it all. First lap incidents are always tricky for the stewards.
And it sounds like the mood in the FIA garage changed. Smiles before, serious faces after, especially regarding Verstappen.
That's often the way. And his tense exchange with the Viaplay reporter about the penalty.
Yeah, that underscored his frustration, didn't it? Suggested he felt it was unfair.
He wasn't inclined to discuss it further right then, that's for sure.
And this whole thing seems to have reignited that war of words between Red Bull Horner and McLaren Stella.
Their interpretations of the first corner incident are predictably quite different.
It's just part of that intense competitive rivalry at the top, isn't it? Defending your driver, criticizing the opposition.
Absolutely. And it appears there are still ongoing concerns about stewarding consistency in general.
Not just in F1, but in F2 as well.
Yeah, things like not deploying a safety car when there was debris on track.
And Liam Lawson's post-race penalty in F2 for going off track before the finish line, even though the pass itself was legal.
Those perceived inconsistencies inevitably raise questions and lead to frustration.
The sentiment that the FIA remains the FIA kind of sums up that feeling, doesn't it?
It perhaps reflects a long-held feeling about certain calls and a desire for more clarity and consistency.
So there you have it, our deep dive into the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Phew.
Quite a weekend. From Piastri's breakthrough win, the strategic angles, the behind-the-scenes bits.
And those controversial stewarding decisions, definitely a weekend packed with talking points.
Absolutely. We hope this analysis has given everyone a clearer picture of the key events and the big narratives coming out of Jeddah.
It offered significant insights, didn't it, into the evolving competitive balance, the challenges teams and drivers face.
On and off the track. It's never just about the race itself.
So what were your biggest takeaways? Surprised by McLaren's pace continuing? Or maybe Mercedes' struggles?
Did the stewarding decisions get you thinking?
This deep dive is just the start, really. We definitely encourage everyone to revisit the highlights and discussions with this fresh perspective.
It's crucial, isn't it, considering all these interconnected elements to get the full picture of a Grand Prix weekend?
Well, thanks for joining us here on F1 Blogs for this in-depth look at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, subscribe for more F1 news, detailed breakdowns, and those behind-the-scenes insights. We'll be back to unpack all the action from the Miami Grand Prix next time.